Hello and welcome. This is Kotari and Lightning with another report. This time, I'm going to be walking you through the Christ is King controversy. So, the current controversy that is the split between the Jewish conservatives and the American isolationist branch of conservatives. It's going to be a real fun one here, and you're going to get, I think, a lot of amusement at least out of it. Alright, so we'll start with the two people involved. First up here is Ben Shapiro. So this is the co-founder of the Daily Wire. You'll, of course, that's a conservative news and media publishing organization. Of course, you've probably heard of Ben Shapiro before if you know anything about American conservatism. So he's probably one of the more prominent people in mainstream American conservatism. A little bit more towards the fringe than perhaps a lot of other people, but still someone that a lot of people would know. And as you can see there, he has 6.6 million followers on Twitter. So it's more, rather well known. And in room number 2, we have Candace Owens. So Candace Owens used to go and work for the Daily Wire, and recently she parted ways with or more accurately, she got fired. Basically, Candace Owens was going and putting out a whole bunch of conspiracy theories. She was going and putting out theories about Hollywood is controlled by the Jews, and then she was also going and saying stuff like President Macron of France's wife is transgender. So all this crazy stuff. And so, of course, they decide, the Daily Wire being one of those organizations that wants to go and say that they're respectable conservatives, they went and, of course, parted ways with her. And so what Candace Owens then did is she went and posted the phrase, Christ is King. Now, of course, if you know anything about the Daily Wire, you'll know that both of the primary people who own it are Jewish, and so the idea is that Candace Owens was claiming that she was a Christian and that she was being persecuted. So we see here, for example, Candace Owens, Christ is King is trending worldwide. The media's attempt to cross him again has failed. Happy Sunday. And so then you see here that she's also going and saying, overwhelmed by the amount of love I've received over the last 24 hours from all over the world. Thank you. Also, to my brothers and sisters in faith who are recognizing that we need to stand by one another, there's a deep-seated hatred in the media for Christians. The worldwide persecution of Christians rarely receives coverage and is readily dismissed. We should not allow that. Christian history has been wiped from textbooks. The Bible has been removed from classrooms. The result is madness everywhere. The attempt by the media to equate biblical scripture with white supremacy must be our red line. Alright, so it's always appropriate in every scenario to share biblical scripture because it is true. For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It divides the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. So you can see here, there's 1.4 million views on that. The initial post had 4.3 million views. So the point is she went rather viral with this perspective that she put out. And so we have here, we see that she's also interacting with other people like, Cernovich, these sorts of basically alt-right or altist sort of people. These are the types that she's now interacting with. Of course, she's going to be become one of these people. And we see so basically the claim is that she was fired because she went and assaulted a Jewish rabbi. As we see George here, who is a by the way, if you want if you're going to use Twitter, which I don't particularly recommend, but follow this guy named Cheyenne Is that I'm sorry, I messed up his name there. I'm sure, but he's really good. Basically, if you see anyone that he's following, they're a disinfo agent. This guy specializes in looking at propaganda and disinformation. So if he's following them, they're almost certainly a big propaganda account. So that's really a fun little way. We all have these people that we follow, you know. But anyways, Candace Owens. As I said, everyone can see what's happening. If you have not watched yet, I encourage everyone to watch this episode of my show with a rabbi. It's the reason I have earned the ire of certain organizations. And George says, the ADL is now coming after Candace Owens for defending herself against a satanic Jewish rabbi who sells sex toys. The same rabbi has been attacking her for 2 years, but it's anti-Semitic for her to defend herself? The Anti-Defamation League should be sued for defamation. Alright. And then this is the ADL talking about how Nick Fuentes is praising Candace Owens. And yes, one of the groups that we're going to see is involved in this whole thing are the Groypers, which are Nick Fuentes' various followers. Nick Fuentes, of course, being the leader of America First, the Tradcath Zuber Patriotic American organization. Oh boy. Yep, so they're going to be one of the people and groups that are most pushing this whole Christ is King element. So that's basically given you an idea about who the major players are. Yep, Candace Owens again. My crime is that I do not believe that American taxpayers should have to pay for Israel's wars or the wars of any other country. I will not change my mind. So the question is, what will you do to me next? The world is watching. Okay, so we understand which specific faction of the American right specifically that Candace Owens is aligning herself with. It's the isolationist faction. The faction that says we want to just stay in America, not have any wars. We want to go and cede global control to these other factions. Specifically, it's going to be Russia, China, Iran. This would be the result of America pulling away from the world. So this is what this faction wants. So they want to go and be isolationists. Which, remember, it has a big history in America, but it's always ended in disaster when the U.S. doesn't want to go and get involved in stuff. All right. So, yeah, that's basically Candace Owens. All right, and thought we'd now go and look at the Christ is King hashtag. So once more, this is the message chain that Candace Owens started. It has currently 105,000 posts on it, but the important thing is that these are going to be promoted by some very big influencers, and I'm going to go and point them out as we go along here. Alrighty, so this will just be a good example of a guy who is typical for what we're looking at. So Dietrich, pro-Christ, pro-white, pro-life, smaller sort of guy. Christ is King. You're literally holocausting me. So again, you're just going to go and see them insulting Jews like this, insulting Jews. Jews do not have, of course, a belief in Jesus as the Messiah. I think this should be obvious if you look into their history. So a specific tactic, though, that's going to be used here is that they're going to go and attempt to divide people from supporting Israel because they want to go and create a divide between these people who are Christians and then people who are Jewish. So, of course, in America, you've rather famously had Zionism being a very big focus of American evangelicalism. It's starting to grow much less now. And these people are basically trying to go and take advantage of it. Right, so you have a typical Catholic here getting involved. You're going to see a lot of this coming out of Catholic stuff as well. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, I believe this guy's gone involved too. Yeah. So, anyways, this is just a good example of a guy who's like a hardcore anti-Jewish Catholic. So it's like pornography is the Jewish sacrament of initiation for men. Abortion is the Jewish sacrament of initiation for women. Again, just like crazy stuff there. But all right, and where is? All right, yep. Here's his comment on it. Catholic-Jewish dialogue is now officially over. Ben Shapiro, Rabbi Barkley, Rabbi Shmuley, and Mr. Clavin killed it. Candace Owens put the final nail in the coffin. It has been replaced by the affirmation that Christ is King. The reasons why some people believe that with enough insistence they can convince American Christians that the basic truth, Christ is King, is actually anti-Semitic is because they've been successfully spiking the ball on Christianity for the past 60 years. Inch by inch, by pretending to be our friends and making us fearful of having the media project us as overzealous, is how they have scored so many wins. It's how mocking Christ has become commonplace in Hollywood. The reality is that they accuse us of what they are guilty of. They hold contempt for Christianity. The reality is that Christ consciousness is rising throughout the world, and any person who is attempting to use methods of psychology to make people pause before they profess their faith is not on the side of goodness. By Christ consciousness, very, very interesting way that she's putting it there. I should mention that is like the New Age theosophical way of putting it. Very, very interesting that this is how she is choosing to go and present herself. So Christ consciousness. And remember, we're talking about the potential for a global alignment here, like the communists, the far-right Christians, the far-right Islamists, the like hyper-anarchists, all of these various authoritarian countries. We're talking about this sort of alignment that they're getting into. I call it the fourth monotheism, and I'm going to have to do a really big piece on that at some point, but I really do believe that this is what is happening, because I'm seeing it all over, and I'm seeing these people go and shamelessly go and promote one another, just promote one another constantly. And this is another good example of what I found a bit earlier. I was, so Mike Flynn, of course, you'll know that he's one of these very famous people in the QAnon community and that sort of thing. There's been some speculation that he's the one who ran it as a psychological operation to go and support Donald Trump. Well, Michael Flynn here says, Jesus is king. So, and this was in 2023, September 4th. So that just gives you an idea of what we're dealing with, right? So this has been something that this group has been wanting to go and promote for a long time. And so this is General Flynn, whose entire shtick is that he is like pro-American nationalist, pro-Christian, but very importantly, pro-isolationist. That is his big shtick. Right, and there's also something other that is interesting that I recently came across with him. Just going to go down a little bit. Yep, this right here. Okay, so here he is promoting Jackson Hinkle. Jackson Hinkle, may I remind you, is a national Bolshevist who wants to go and institute communism in America. And here's Michael Flynn going and promoting him. Yeah, this guy who's apparently the Christian theocrat who is hyper anti-Marxist. And yeah, here he is going and promoting a guy who wants to go and institute communism in America. Jackson Hinkle. And he's going and promoting him with the knowledge that he's going and interviewing the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman. This is just to give you an idea about the sort of connections that you have here. They're of course going to go and still appeal to people using their various different languages, but yeah, that is what they're like. I'm just going to go click into Charlie Kirk quick because I'm honestly interested to see if he's said anything about this. Not seeing anything. Anyways, this is kind of a guy who is like, I know he was like anti-Ukraine, but pro Israel, I believe. Yeah, not seeing anything. Okay, well, we'll just click out that. This is stuff for later. We're going we're going to get into some stuff here. All right. So that just goes to show you though that we had that, um, that we had Candace Owens, and then the sort of people that she's now hanging around with and being promoted by are guys like E. Michael Jones, who again conspiracy theorist. This is the sort of guy who, for example, goes and claims that all Jews are descended from the Khazars of that like Turkish empire that people allegedly claim is converted to Judaism, despite the fact that like there's not actually a historical evidence basically that they ever did that, except for like this tiny little blurb in a manuscript in Spain that was creating like this mythos. It is full of inaccuracies. Otherwise, it's just like bizarre stuff, right? Yeah, so he's the sort of guy who'll be like, oh, the Jews are all Khazars and they're all worshipping Satan, the devil, and we're gonna have to go be the good old Roman Catholic Church and kick them out. And yep, that's what he's like. So I'll finish off with what E. Michael Jones had to say. Powerful response from Candace Owens. The grotesque tweets of a drunken Rabbi Shmuley celebrating Purim, gloating over his apparent victory, are just one indication that the Jews have overplayed their hand once again and brought about the very opposite of what they intended. Christ the King is now trending on X, thanks to Mr. Clavin. When Rabbi Shmuley sobers up, he will discover that the world has changed because of his wretched behavior. By firing Candace Owens, the Daily Wire destroyed conservatism. Now the fundamental political issue is the Jewish question. Wow. Again, like, wow. I do have to kind of, like, in a sort of sense, thank Elon Musk for going and allowing all these people back on, because, like, this is just a great way of researching them all. It's honestly just pure entertainment to just see how absolutely batshit crazy they all are. There's Clavin too. Poor Clavin. It's like, Jews kind of don't believe that Jesus is king and all that, and then just all these Christians going and hopping on them. How dare you? How dare you? I thought we'd do actually is just go to Bible Gateway here quick. For the record, if you haven't been on Bible Gateway before, awesome site. You can go and search anything that you want in the Bible, and it has a whole bunch of different translations here for you to use. I'm just going to use the NKJV here. It's just a bit more readable than some of the ones that I usually use for my research. We'll just say, my kingdom is not of this world. Alright, so this is from John 18. So remember these sorts of verses whenever you hear about Jesus. Pilate answered, Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you to me. What have you done? Jesus answered, My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight, so that I would not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here. Pilate therefore said to him, Are you a king then? Jesus answered, You say rightly that I am a king. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I have come into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of truth hears my voice. Pilate said to him, What is truth? And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, I find no fault in him at all. So, yeah, this is Pontius Pilate, of course, being the governor of Judea at this time, and an actual historical figure, by the way, too. So, oddly enough, one of the better attested historical figures, but also one who is that's not saying too much given how little we know about the various governors of Judea at this time. But anyways, so there you see, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight. But now my kingdom is not from here. So this has been the typical expression of Christianity throughout the ages, where it's the idea is that Jesus rules in a heavenly kingdom, and that there is this. So if you go to like Revelation, the idea is that another world has to come in before Jesus comes and rules over that world, that Jesus does not rule over this world. So all these guys that are going on about King Jesus and that, they're basically trying to go and use it to go and argue for a theocratic nation. But as we see in his own words right here, recorded in the Gospel of John, Jesus says that, no, you're not supposed to go and fight for me. This is not where my kingdom is. And of course, this ties into the whole... See, the whole problem with Jesus is that really what happened is that people took a figure who was actually pretty libertine. Like, that part where you talks about, eating and drinking with sinners and tax collectors and all these sorts of things. Like, that's actually supposed to be what Jesus is like, where he's like this... He's a very soft sort of moralist. He's not actually interested in like the hardcore judgmental moralism of the law and the Torah, that sort of thing, and which is why there's always like this idea of replacing the Old Testament law with the law of love. So that just gives you an idea, though, that these types don't really agree with them on that point. They're just going to go and, oh boy, have their own mythological Jesus, right? Another figure that's just been mythologized over time to be something that he really, really wouldn't have been at the time. But anyways, we'll go back to Christ is King. Alright, and we have Trad West, Christ is King. Not all kings wear a crown of gold, mine wore a crown of thorns. Right, Trad West, Western civilization, Ave Christus Rex. So, Hail King Jesus, in Latin, Ave Christus Rex. That's what it means. So, 110,000 followers there. Alright, and this is Groiper again. So this one has 42,000. Hey, when I got booted from the Daily Wire Circle, I created my own faction. I won't hire someone that can't say Christ is King or America First. You are the reverse. You can be gay, liberal, you just can't criticize Israel. Nick Fuentes smokes Jeremy D. Buring. Nick Shapiro debate one. So by the way, this is the other co-founder of the Daily Wire, so Jeremy Buring. Nice, a little conservative nod there with the pronouns thing. All right. Yep. Light of Purpose, Christ is King, a little AI generated image there. 322,000 followers. Yeah. All right. Here's another Christ is King type. Threat to Democracy, host of the KGB show. Alright, let's see what this guy has to say. Christ is King and Mary is Queen.
Christ is King and therefore Mary is Queen. I came across this post today by Taylor Marshall on X, which stated this fact, and it led to a small but considerable degree of confusion and argument by Protestants in the replies. Here's a few of them.
Gonna be talking about Catholic doctrine. Okay, never mind that. Okay, yeah. So for those who don't know, Jesus is regarded as king in heaven. He's kind of like the co-ruler with God the Father, and they send out the Holy Spirit from them in the Roman Catholic teaching. And then Mary is the Queen of Heaven in Roman Catholicism. So, yeah. All right. Brandon Tyler Moore. Just a friendly reminder that you did not evolve from apes. The archaeological record has no transitional fossils. You are made in the image of God. Christ is King. And that guy's got 45,000 followers, described as remnant, husband, father, constitutionalist, patriot, love wins, and for some reason the American and Canadian flag. Lovely. But anyways, incorrect. Okay, for starters, fossil finds are very, very rare. It's not like there's a super common occurrence where you go and find intact fossils of ancient species. Like, there are certain types that you could go and get, but they're like trilobites or that sort of thing, where you could go and get places where the sediment has gone, and you find hundreds or thousands of them in one place. But yeah, these types in between here, these are based on actual fossils. Like, this isn't something that is debated. That's the point of having these intermediate types. So it isn't a thing that there aren't intermediate types. It's just, again, the demand that's being made is that, where are the millions of these? Well, I mean, where are the millions of mammoth fossils even? Like, you simply don't have them. And that's a creature that lived tens of thousands of years ago. I think even some of there's like a dwarf variant of the mammoth that interestingly lived until I think 1,000 years ago on certain small islands to the north of Russia. So very interesting. But yeah, there is evidence for this, and we do have evidence of transitional creatures. It's just that you're making kind of a big demand to go and have fossil evidence for everything, is what I'm saying. And remember, fossils aren't usually found in intact forms either. So it's oftentimes that you'll find like fragments, like just a few teeth and a jawbone, this sort of thing. So they're very rare. Christ is king. Your religion offends my worldview. I know. So yep, of course, they'll have a little trad man and then the NPC man there. Yep. All right. Oh, Andrew Tate. Oh, good. Tate's in here. Always good to see that. Reminder, Tate is a Muslim. As a Muslim, it warms my heart to see the resurgence of spirited Christian declarations. Christ is king. I pray Christianity regains its strength and protects its societies against the pervasive and constant erosion of morality by the devotees of Satan. If you accept everything, you stand for nothing. It says 8.1 million views. Yeah. By the way, remember, this is the guy who was like, go and watch Common Sense Skeptics videos on him. You'll absolutely love them. They'll give you so much insight onto this guy. Just a joke that people take this moron seriously. He's just an absolute grifter. But there have been a few. So basically, the funny thing is that, so if you're like a European or Euro-American, you go with the trad Catholic or trad Christian approach. Converts to Russian Orthodoxy are also popular amongst those types. And then if you're someone who's like an African American, Tate is half African American. His dad was African American. They were oftentimes go to be trad Muslims. So that's the split, if you want to know. And in both cases, it's just pure grifting. I mean, they're usually just there to go and say, "Oh, look at me! I'm a religious person now. I'm so moral." Yeah, yeah. So 8.1 million views on that. All right. We have Michael. To every Christian telling every other Christian not to say Christ is king. This is what I really, truly think of you and your pandering cowardice. So, presumably a clip from, that looks like Gladiators, so probably calling out cowardice or something. Alrighty, reactionary griper. So again, one of, Vactist traditional Catholic. Okay, yes, that's Sedevactist traditional Catholic. So for the record, if you want to know what group that is, that's basically a group of Catholics who are like, oh, we're so right wing that we've entirely split from the church and we don't want to go and hear about this fake Pope Francis and all that he's saying in the world. We're just going to go and be our own little thing over here. So, Groiper, this is one of Nick Fuentes' guys. Again, Nick Fuentes is a Catholic. I don't know how exactly devout he is or anything, but America First Nationalist, loyal Groiper. Yep. Me, Christ is king. Jews on decks. So the interesting point about Nick Fuentes is that he used to be obsessed with what he called optics, which meant that he wanted to say, oh, we in conservative circles should go and try and be respectable to the masses, respectable to all the people out there. And to do that, we should not go and use these hardcore language that we find in places like the alt-right and that sort of thing. And meanwhile, nowadays, the founder of the alt-right, Nick Spencer, if you ever go look up, he has like these super bellicose takes on everything. And meanwhile, Nick Fuentes is out here talking about how much he loves Hitler and wants to go be Hitler 2.0 and wants to go, say, oh, there's no Holocaust. And in this case, you see his follower, me, Christ is king. Jews on X. So, yeah. And then we have a little mantra thing going on here. Michael, Christ is King. It's 54.5 thousand followers. Hey, Andy Powell's Mills. Christ is King at Ben Shapiro. Yep. And this guy who has 5,000. Candace Stan. So Candace Owens Stan, ex-music and entertainment industry. Christ is King. America First. Trump 24. Yep. Alright, we have, very good, the propagandist Dr. Anastasia Maria Lupus getting in on it. Jewish Daily Wire host Andrew Clavin says Christ is King is an anti-Semitic dog whistle. Jews are God's chosen people. Alright, do I trust them to go and have the actual video here? Alright, we'll go to listen.
Grown. When I did this, by the way, the priest who baptized me said, Christians won't accept you. You'll still be a Jew. And I said, well, I am. That's my race. I'm a Jew. I'm proud of my race. It's a great race. It's done many, many great things, including write the Bible. And, I am a Jew. But that hasn't happened at all. Christians have welcomed me with open arms, except this Christ the King anti-Semitic crowd.
Yeah, so that's one point, right? It's like, so you can go and convert to Christianity as a Jew, but then there's a certain type of Christian who's like, oh, I never will trust you. You're always going to be a crypto Jew, and you're always going to be out there to go and screw me over. So that's sort of the idea there.
Christ is the King, and one day every knee will bow and recognize it, because he's not just my King, he's King of the universe. But when you use that phrase to mean that God has abandoned his chosen people, the Jews, through whom he came into this world incarnate, and that he's broken his promises, his covenant with the Jews, you are quoting Scripture like Satan does in the Bible. You are quoting Scripture to your purposes, and that to me is specifically wicked.
Right, so there's been obviously a lot of talk over what it means to go and, well, there's one idea in Christianity that the church has entirely superseded the Jewish people, and then there's another idea that, the Jewish people are still the chosen people. So there's certain Protestant groups that in particular still like the idea of the Jewish people still being the primary focus, that their promises haven't been superseded. And then there's the more typical approach from, I think, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox churches to go and assign the chosen people status more to the Roman Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church or the church as a full body considered. So that's the idea here.
When you spit that phrase at Ben Shapiro, my friend Ben Shapiro, and I understand this. All of you who love Ben, and I love Ben, and Jordan Peterson, you all want to see them find Jesus because you know what joy and freedom that gives you, and you certainly feel that it alters your relationship with God. But when I think about this, to be honest with you, and I know some people will disagree with this, but life is not a game show where you guess the name of God and you get to go to heaven. Honk, yes, the name is Jesus. I look at Ben's life and I think if Ben were to embrace Jesus Christ, it would cause devastation to his family, to the people who love him, to the people who listen to him, to his position in the world. I just have this feeling that God has put this guy where he wants him to do what he wants him to do. And as you know, I feel that, the Jews were not abandoned by God.
Right, so basically this is a guy who's obviously more universalistic in how he views the world, so he's not going to be fanatical about things. That's a decent way, I think, to be about the world if you're going to be a Christian. Remember so this is perhaps going more into like what was considered the Unitarian sort of side of Christianity, where during the Enlightenment period there were people who wanted to go and have the moral teachings of Christianity. They wanted to go and have the prophets and the various saints and to use their teachings, but they also didn't want to go and say, everyone who doesn't identify as a Christian is going to hell and all that sort of thing. So this is what emerged with Unitarianism, and of course the different groups have been kind of mild on a lot of different teachings nowadays. It's just that the very hardcore Christians want to go and be separated from everyone else and say that the old ways are still true. And of course, even then, like, probably not really, because, you know, as we see who they're promoting, we can kind of just tell. All right. So we have Sam Parker here, ran for U.S. Senate, Utah, America First, MAGA, Make America Government Local Again. All right, repeal the 16th, 17th, 19th, and 26th amendments in the Immigration Act of 1965. Okay. So yeah, basically wants to have a Wade America. That's what you should read into that guy. Christ is King, Israel is Satan, and the Daily Wire is Israel First. Well, that's certainly a take. Israel is Satan. But you see what I mean? How these guys, they're not different. Remember, we've just been through all of these like super far left people who are, you know, screaming about Israel and hating on the Jews, and then we go over to these people on the far right. They're alleged opposites, and we find them doing the exact same thing and being the exact same way. Yeah, it should not come as a surprise to anybody, really. Hey, Daily Christian tweets, Jesus Christ is King. 41,000. Chief Trumpster, Freblickt 1, Christ is King. Alright, number 1, Candace Owens, Stan, Blexit / Jake Filth. Alright, and Chief Trumpster is, of course, going, let's see, top 5, ban the ADL, Rumble partner, MAGA, America First investigative journalist, streamer, Space Master, etc. 43,000 followers. Yeah, so that just gives you an idea. They're going to go and Nick Fuentes, you might find this odd for, of course, him being this fanatical white nationalist type, which is what people usually see him as, but of course he does have a very great fondness for promoting specific black conservative people, so he promoted Kanye West throughout all that whole business where Kanye West was, you know, being hyper anti-Jewish. At that time, probably the most high-profile anti-Jewish person in the West, I think. Perhaps he's now been superseded by some of these people, although, I mean, Kanye West still does have a pretty big hold, so I'm not sure. Alright, so the salt of the earth, Christ is King. That has the most unapologetic, controversial one. Alright. Has 477,000 followers, so yep, he's getting in on this. Lizzie Marbach, Christians, ignore the campaign to mark Christ is King as anti-Semitic. Ignore it with all your might. Christ is King, and every knee will bow and confess that he is Lord. So it has 509,000 views. She has 10,000 followers. Christian, wife, and mother. Former Ohio GOP and Trump 2020 campaign, passionate about helping others use their brains. So helping others use their brains by going and putting out an absolutist creed. Yeah, and when it's like, oh, you have to believe in this or you're going to hell, and etc., etc., etc. I remind you, coming from a guy who's like literally a libertine. Oh my gosh. It's just ridiculous how much people mythologize other people. Just ridiculous. Catholic girl, Christ is King. Yep. Catholic, pro-life, sharing Catholic-related news. Alright. Donald Trumpo, Christ is King. Oh, that's an old extremely cringe drawing of Trump in a courtroom listening to how it's like, oh, yeah, of course Jesus is going to be there while the judge is going over how you managed to go and misfile your taxes and go and screw over the taxpayer, and then went overvalued your properties, and yep. Alright, Donald Trumpo has 1 million followers. Yep. And 148,000 views on that. Hey, Jake Shields, I'm sure he's going to say something super nice about the Jews. he totally isn't. Jake Shields, people claiming that saying Christ is king is anti-Semitic is one of the most retarded things I've ever seen. And it was 191,000 views, so of course, yeah, he doesn't like Jews at all, and he has 648,000 followers. Alright, Candace Owens, we've already been through our treat, but I'll read it again for you. Christ is king is trending worldwide. The media's attempt to cross him again has failed. Happy Sunday. Alright. Trad West, Christ is king. Only trust me. Yes, Lord. All the mainstream news outlets. You can trust us. Get away, Satan. Yeah. So remember, these people just want you to go and listen to them and go and believe everything they tell you while going and setting yourself against everything out there. So it's the whole isolationist and then us versus them mindset, and it's more just their absolutist mentality coming out. All right. That's presumably going to say, like, let's see. Yeah, Christ is king. Yeah. All right. And, yeah, 26,000. All right. Yeah. Wendell, Christ is king. Husband, father, pastor, 34,000 followers. All right. Yep. All right. Sneeko. Didn't this guy convert to Islam? Am I thinking of someone else? Because I have a feeling this guy's actually a Muslim. I'll have to check more into that. I'm not going to do it right now, but he has 800,000 followers. But yeah, Christ is king apparently. I know that in Islam, as I've went over previously, Jesus is apparently supposed to have the part of king and judging the world at the end of time. Yeah. Stephen Clark's Christ is king. All right. Jewish Daily Wire host Andrew Clavin says Christ is king is an anti-Semitic dog whistle. Jews are God's chosen people. Christians of the world, they hate you and everything you stand for. And it's from a guy with 1,800 followers. So once more, like, this guy is like a Jewish Christian man. He's like, actually, maybe don't go and hate all the Jews, and maybe let's not go into the whole replacement theology thing. Which once more, that the whole replacement theology thing is also very silly, because it's like there's not much point in being involved in the whole Jewish Old Testament if they're not going to have their promises carried out. Like, there's a whole ton of promises in there to go to the Jewish people that haven't been carried out. And what's more, the Old Testament isn't, it's not going to be an accurate book or anything. A reminder, it's the result basically of one faction of Israelites, the smaller faction called the Judeans, going and setting themselves against the major Israelites. So Israel, which was at the time following paganism, more like in the they were following Baal, those sorts of gods. And so, of course, a lot of what you read about in the Old Testament is just going to be hyper-stereotyped versions of that, or parodied versions of that, because it's just coming from a small group that want to go and declare themselves to be separate. But obviously, so that's not a very great or glorious start to the religion. It's just that all of the development of the Jewish people since then has kind of been using elements that have come from the Bible, and they've done their own philosophies and that sort of thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that Judaism is bigger than just the Old Testament, and the Old Testament, which has its own various faults and old problems. Yeah, and so that's just to understand that this is generally how things are viewed. And of course, there isn't this sort of mindset of fanaticism in the Jewish population that you see in these other sorts of people. Typically, there's a branch of the Jewish population that is very fanatical about their ethno-nationalism. That's sort of something that's considered apart from the religion specifically, though. it's like they tie in a very hardcore version of the religion to match that, but it just gives you an idea, though. Alrighty. Let's go watch this interview quickly. It's going to be fun just commenting. Alright, we'll do it. So, that girl, Casey. This interview that Candace Owens did probably solidified the Daily Wire's decision to let her go. The guy went out to say that the word anti-Semitism mutates based on their feelings. They write laws for that word. Think about that. Christ is king. Once more, anti-Semitism has a very definitive legal definition. It's that if you're promoting hatred towards the Jewish people, in particular in ways that would result in people going in mass discriminating against Jewish people. So, anyways, that's what anti-Semitism means in a legal sense. And of course, we're seeing right now that if you apparently have a large enough mob behind you, you can go and avoid any penalties for doing hate speech. So that's a great notion to go and see in the world.
Academics is that I don't get to tell a black man if he's experiencing racism.
Mm-hmm.
He knows. I don't get to tell you if you're experiencing misogyny. You know. If I make a comment and it's misogynistic, and you say, Rabbi, you know that was really misogynistic, my job is to say, wow, I didn't mean that. I apologize.
Jews get to tell us that was anti-Semitic. Your job is to say, now you say, I'm sorry, Rabbi. Now say it. Say, I'm sorry, Rabbi. You can't tell me what it is. I said it was anti-Semitic and you hurt me. Now say, I'm sorry, Rabbi.
Yeah, and like that's... So this is like one guy's very personal interpretation of the word of what anti-Semitism means. Well, what's more, we have legal definitions of these words that are the actual important things, and so but this person's, like, he may personally find things anti-Semitic, and he may like tell people about that, but once more in a legal sense, there's going to be a very specific thing that is defined as anti-Semitic, and that's specifically what people are going to legally avoid. Yeah.
Rabbi, that's your job. Now say it. Say it, Goyim.
That's not what I meant. And you do not get the right to say what is anti-Semitic.
You do not have the right, Goy. You don't have the right to say what is anti-Semitic. Say, I'm sorry, Rabbi.
I'm not trying to I don't think I said anything about me having the right. I just said.
All right. So that was that. Anti-Semitism mutates on your feelings. It's like, honestly, so people are like, oh, they let Candace go because she went and talked about, she went and talked about this rabbi specifically. No. For starters, the much more serious accusation is that the Jews in Hollywood, which I know Ben Shapiro wasn't exactly the most in with the Jews in Hollywood, but the claim that the Jews in Hollywood used their tribalism to go and cover up sex crimes. So that was one thing that Candace Owens said. And then the other one that she has publicly talked about, of course, then she was promoting Kanye West and defending him when he made all those anti-Jewish statements. And then thirdly, again, that macro, like, you're trying to be a theoretically respectable conservative organization, and you're just going to go and out of the blue say that President Macron's wife, who has 3 kids and 8 grandkids, you're going to go and say that she's transgender just out of the blue because you don't like what President Macron said about Ukraine. Like, these are the sorts of things that would be like, we don't want Candace Owens working for us because she's going way too off the deep end. She's going into hyper-conspiracist territory. We at the Daily Wire don't want to go and be associated with that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's the point there, and I think that's what was going on here. And what's more, the opinions of one guy, so you take them for what they are, but it's like it's not important in the greater sense. The important thing is that you have to go and have legal definitions where it's like what does it mean to go and promote hatred against an ethnic group, and specifically, or in some cases it's like, what does it mean to promote hatred against a religious group, such that, once more, you're advocating for their discrimination or outright violence against them. So the point is that this is what the law has to focus on, and what one person may find offensive or defined that they view this or that as being against their personal ethnic group, the law has to have a universal standard, and that's an important thing. And you might say that, oh, this standard is not being applied universally, it is being applied to some groups vastly more than others. That is likely accurate, yes. But theoretically, the law should have a standard that can go across ethnic groups for what this means. Alright. Anyway, you have a post trying to get people to say Christ is King. Chad West. Christ is King. The Antichrist. You can't defeat me. Humanity. I know, but he can. Jesus shows up. So that's a Marvel meme, apparently. Alright. Also featuring Nordic gods. Poor little Hel, who gets very, very misunderstood, and so often then Thor, I guess. I guess in all fairness, apparently in Marvel, they're like aliens that got brainwashed into believing they're gods or something. I don't know. I ducked out of Marvel after Iron Man 2. I hated that movie. So, yeah, no superhero stuff for me. Yeah. Joshua Hames. I will go and click into that over here. Alright, I say Christ is King because I actually believe that Jesus meant what he said in Matthew 28. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, Jesus. To Ming Jesus. Funny enough, there was actually a Chinese guy that made the claim that he was like the leader of like a major peasant revolution, and made the claim that Jesus was actually Chinese and that he was apparently like Jesus's spirit brother or something. Crazy stuff. That was also a movement that got millions of people killed. My gosh. Alright, too many Christians believe that Christ's kingship is confined to their hearts or the church. Kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight, so that I would not be delivered to the Jews, but now my kingdom is not from here. Oh, Jesus, you just need to have a little bit better doctrine. I mean, here. Joshua Hames is going to tell you what to actually believe. Come on, let's listen to Joshua Hames here. They say Christ is king, but what they really mean is Christ is my king. Too many are embarrassed or ashamed to stand firm on the truth that Christ is king of America. He is king of your town. He is king of the atheists. He is king over the Muslims and the Hindus. He is king over the leftists. He is the rightful king of kings, and all who do not repent and believe are rebels against the rightful king of the cosmos. So there you go. Absolutism, and also America was not founded on this sort of absolutist idea. America was founded, such founders who took inspiration from Christianity, it was founded on Unitarian principles, Universalist principles, the specific principles that don't hold to all this. They want Christ as a moral figure, not as one who is a ruler, one who has all of these different laws that he wants to go and enforce on society. And the good news of the gospel is that our wonderful king offers total pardon and complete amnesty for all the wicked rebels under his rule. He died to purchase that amnesty for you and for me. Once more, sacrificial scapegoating. I should also mention that I'll do a long video about this later, but this is actually, this whole idea of Christ as a sacrifice and sacrifice to go and save humanity is actually an inversion of the original teachings of the Semitic peoples of the Levant. The original teachings are that there was a god who called Hadad, who went and fought with death, and death basically gave him the mandate, oh, you have to go and die, or otherwise I'm going to go and kill all of humanity. And specifically, the way that Death wants him to go and die is that Death wants him to go and incarnate as a human and then to be killed as a human. And so the idea is that Hadad went and basically he took a calf, and then it was a stillborn, and he fashioned it to go and look like himself, and then that was offered up to Death. And so Death went and he found Baal fallen, and then he's like, oh, Baal Hadad is dead. I am victorious. I am supreme. And then Baal Hadad returns after, and Baal, for the record, if you've never heard that name, it's just a title meaning Lord or Master. It's very common, like, as far as the gods go. And so then Baal goes and returns after 7 years, and then Hadad goes and fights with Death, and basically goes and brings Death to his knees, and then he goes and gets all of the souls of the people who Death had tried to go and hold over him. And then the spirits of these souls are they're escorted over the waters by a god named Kothar wa Kazis, and yes, Kotarian lightning. This refers to a specific part of this myth where Kotar went and forged weapons of lightning for Hadad, and then basically the idea is that Kothar wa Kazis goes and keeps them safe from the Leviathan that's in the sea, which seeks to devour them. The Leviathan here also having 7 heads, the 7-headed dragon. So all of this language here is adopted into Christianity. The problem is that they went and inverted one of the most important parts of it, which is that Jesus died. Jesus offered himself and became obedient to death. He became obedient to death, even death on the cross. Therefore, God has exalted him to the highest place. This is the teaching of Christianity, and it is the inversion from that old book, the old story. So, and in Judaism, they of course have this the idea of victory over death. So, there's, "O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" So, there's this idea of a very deep belief in the afterlife. In Judaism, it's called Abraham's bosom. The idea that you're gathered to the side of Abraham at your death. So anyways, that's just to say that this is based upon an inversion, and I'll have to once more go deeply into that later on. But you'll notice that Gnostic Christianity, they hold to that. They say that Jesus didn't actually die, that his actual true essence was elsewhere, and then there was this body of the earth, of the world, that died on the cross. A similar sort of thing happens in Islam, actually, where Jesus doesn't die in Islam. So, very interesting stuff. But we have, Christ is a patient, merciful, gracious King. But for all who will not lay down their arms and give up their silly rebellion, they will face the righteous wrath and perfect justice of our King. We are all under his authority, whether we like it or not. Christ is not simply my King. Christ is the King. I will never tire saying it. I will never tire praising our wonderful King. I will never tire of imploring all to give up their rebellion and kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way. When his wrath is kindled but a little, blessed are all those who put their trust in him. All right, so yeah, it's just a very, very interesting, just a very interesting idea. Like, so we're so far abstracted from what this originally was that we've gone and embraced the idea of sacrificial offerings and offering up someone as a sacrificial offering, and then we have this King of the Universe business. So yeah, just it's very, very far removed from what it's originally was. All right, we've gone over that post from Candace Owens. There we go. Yep, Jack Pozobiec. Yep. Christ is King is trending worldwide in the top 10 as Holy Week begins. hundreds of thousands of posts. Every knee, so that's every knee will bow, has 365,000 views. By the way, this guy is also in the isolationist faction. He constantly puts out pro-Russian propaganda, and one of the things they did recently, so he was initially, when he looked at the Hamas invasion of Israel, it was like, oh, I'm totally against this, right? Oh, look at me, I'm a good conservative Christian, I'm going to go and condemn the Muslims. And then what happened is that now the time has come when the isolationists have decided, oh, we're going to go and not support Israel. Well, now suddenly he's like, oh, Joe, that Israel bombs Christians in Gaza. Oh, look, they bombed a church in Gaza. Oh, no. Yep, this is what he is like. So then he wants to go and say, oh, look at how anti-Christian the Jews are and all that. Alrighty. Alright, so James Lindsay, pro-America, anti-communist based AF. Let's see. Christ is King is, in addition to its malicious uses, a Christian virtue signal. Christians say it's true. Nobody else does. Repeating it shows you're on the team. Refusing to brings suspicions. That's why it works. Bad actors can abuse it, and lots will go along and defend it. So, yep. A Christian virtue signal. Remember, the right wing has all these virtue signals of their own that you're supposed to go and do. You're supposed to be for specific things. Supposed to say very specific things. And he's this guy's of course looks like he's also a maybe a right wing fellow. Good point though made. It's a Christian virtue signal, and that's the point that you're going to be asked to go and say it, or you're going to be said that you're anti-Christian. All right. That is with the Doomer girl, I guess, and Lieutenant Commander. Actually saying Christ is King is anti-Semitic. Yeah. And that looks like it's being used for target practice. Oh, joy. All right. Alright, Mike Winger. I have special interest in reasonable, intelligent answers to tough questions about Christianity. What do you have to say? I don't know why people are arguing about the phrase Christ is King. I want to remember this time of blissful ignorance when I inevitably discover the reason. Well, Mike, if you're listening, it's because insanely small chance that you're listening. It's the because of Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, the isolationist faction in America. This is all happening. To make a split between American conservatives and Jewish Israel. Yep. So that's what you're looking at. The King's Life with 619,000 followers. Christ is King. All right. Alright, the real Brandon. When Ben Shapiro openly talked negative about what Christians believe, no one called him anti-Christian or tried to silence him, and neither should they. Just like saying Christ is King or disagreeing with the actions of a foreign nation's government doesn't make you anti-Semitic. I think the point is, with the whole Christ is King statement, is that you're saying that he's King of the universe. You're also saying that he is King of Israel, and that Jews are wrong, that Judaism is wrong, that they've been wrong for thousands of years, and they should just suck it up and all become Christians. That's essentially what you're saying with this whole thing. So, yep. I pray the Rosemary again. Discover Catholic business. Christ is King forever and ever. Sainthood and business. Yeah. There's a lot of these weird business grifter types on Twitter too. Alright, Eva Vladingerbrock. Eva Vladingerbrock. Wishing you all a blessed Palm Sunday from Rome. Christ is King. Alright, yeah, and this is commentator, lawyer, shield maiden of the far right, thanks Dutch press, as seen on Mark Stein, Tucker Carlson, and others. It smells of propaganda. Yeah, it really smells of propaganda. I think this is a propagandist, if I recall correctly. A Russia-affiliated propagandist. Once more, I'm not going to go in super into a lot of these people. I just want to go give you an idea of how this is being used and by who. So you'll get an idea of who wants Israel to be defunded, because that is the nature of all of this, and who's saying, oh, this is kind of a weird thing. Like, why are people doing this? There you go. David J. Riley. Yep, independent journalist, Catholic, F-list celebrity, maximalist. Bitcoin. Very good, very good, very good. 13.4K followers. That's a very Dylan's keeping an eye on, I guess. I have people I keep an eye on, so if you ever see some of the people that you're looking at here, you're going, what? Why is he looking at that guy? Well, I'm just keeping an eye on a lot of people I'd like to go with and do that. Some people that I follow I like, others are like, sometimes they have useful things, and sometimes like, you're quite off. There's a few that are like, you're really off, but they kind of just want to especially keep an eye on you. So if you ever wondered about why the followers are there, yep, that's it. Christ is love, Christ is peace, Christ is justice, Christ is wisdom, Christ is God, Christ is King. One think that God comes after King. Oh well. Christ is King, he is risen. By the way, this is all happening, for the record, around Easter time, of course, so that's one thing you'll hear people talk about. He is risen and he is risen indeed are the typical Christian response words when you're talking about Easter. This Christ is King is not very typical. All right. Nate Pickowitz, Christian, husband, dad, pastor, writer, 48,000 followers. Jesus Christ is King, Jesus Christ is Lord, Jesus Christ is God, Jesus Christ is eternal. All right, censored men. A reminder, this is one of those accounts that it only ever promotes bad things about people that it dislikes, and so at this point it's the warpath is being launched against the more mainstream conservative people. Things modern day conservatism supports. Transgender conservatives, so Blair White over here. Gay baby stealing conservatives. Israel first conservatives. Jewish supremacist conservatives. Saying Christ is King is anti-Semitic conservatives. Alright. Yep, so so basically what happened with Dave Rubin is that Dave Rubin and his partner, so Dave Rubin is gay, they had a surrogate child, so it is actually like genetically, these are genetically their kids, so they're the male contributor to them. But yeah, apparently that makes you a baby stealer. And apparently there's also, Libs of TikTok, by the way, you might see this person slagged off as well. Libs of TikTok is apparently a Jewish person. So if you ever see them getting slagged off here, that's why it's happening. Jewish supremacist conservatives. So Ben Shapiro apparently, and this guy, and then Laura Loomer, I believe. I have no idea who that is. There's this really weird thing that happens in American conservatism where it's like they sometimes like to see their women bimbofied. I've never gone it either, but that's a case of this. They oftentimes like the whole blonde and like, I don't know, it's gross. It's really weird. But anyway, so the point of censored men is that censored men is like, Christ is King, and you're allowed to be all of these different things, and you're allowed to say Christ is King, so wants to go and really stir up the crowds. That's because the Jews control and blame both sides. Once you understand this, everything makes sense. The biggest problem of the current right wing is that it refuses to be Christian. Calling out Charlie Kirk there, so apparently Charlie Kirk is... let's look at this guy. Brother Nathaniel. So this guy's basically like a Jewish... he's like a Jewish convert to Russian Orthodoxy. And he's absolutely crazy. He's like one of the most anti-Jewish, anti-Israel people you'll ever hear. Yep. So that's like Brother Nathaniel. Yeah, just trust me. If you ever have the chance, like I guess you could go and look up the guy. Do I want to take the time out to hear this guy? Is it just gonna be fun just talking over it the whole time? Okay, we're gonna risk it. We'll see what's happening here.
Let's Judaize the Goyim, like Charlie Kirk has been Judaized. He has. He's an evangelical Christian. You're a Jew, basically. You'll never be a racial Jew. They'll never really accept you. They'll like you saying they're godly, and they'll like you saying they're moral. They love that. You sold out, Charlie. You're hearing it from a Jew, racial Jew. You sold out, Charlie. I feel sorry for you. I really do. You have no voice now. Nick Fuentes is going to take over. You're gone.
Okay. Yeah. So Charlie Kirkberg's reference does have his issues. A lot, there's very typical issues that run all throughout American conservatism. There are issues in American leftism. I call it myself a Big Tent thinker because I want to go and take a lot of these issues of like, okay, let's go and see what goes and transcends them, what we can do that brings people together in society, and so it isn't going to be stuff that's hyper left wing, hyper conservative. Like it's not going to be either of these things. We need to find the ideas that actually work, and then we're going to go and take them. And if there's an idea on the left wing that works, good. If there's an idea on the right that works, good. We're going to go and take them and I think use them, and then that way we'll be better. We're just going to be human instead of these people. They're always polarized. So that's the general idea with me. I'm sure that perhaps the more ideological are like, oh, that you can't go and take it from the other person. Well, no, I'm not going to go and be that way. But yeah, so that was Brother Nathaniel. So Christ knows this. In other words, conservatism has been Judaized. That's why I don't consider myself a conservative anymore. Solomon Ahmed, facts. Dr. Anastasia Maria Lopez, they're as fucked up as the left. So note that, like, major influencers coming in here and they're like, you're absolutely right for everything you say, censored men. We're going to go and support you and direct people towards you. This guy also censored men. I've noticed that he's been doing a lot of their research for them. Yeah. By the way, some of the people here are real, like Wall Street Silver is real douchebag. Also, like, Zionist Jews posting as Americans to push Zionism on Twitter. For starters, a lot of these people aren't even, like, actually, visit. I don't think Visegrad, as far as I know, that guy's saying Polish, like, that's a Polish conservative guy. I don't know. Sometimes he posts interesting stuff on Ukraine, so I follow the guy. But just be aware that you are getting that sort of right-wing bias to all of his stuff, so, just be a bit aware. But as far as I know, he's not, Jewish. Wall Street Silver, though, have big douchey, pro-Russian guys, so I don't like that guy. Recognize the name of some of the others, Babylon Bee, political satire of the sort that sort of site does. Everything looks like that and the Onion. Real world stuff is just more satirical than it at the moment. You just go on Twitter and look up whatever Andrew Tate does, and that's going to be way more funny than the average article there. It was gender identity ideologies are ancient. Prehistoric ideologies originate from the Babylonian Talmud. No. Remember, I just took in my last video. I went and examined one of the major founders of modern day gender theory, and she was going and hyper promoting the she was promoting Hamas, or sorry, them was promoting Hamas. And it's like the Palestinian resistance and all that, just ridiculous stuff. But yeah, no, absolutely not. The only part that they ever point to in the Talmud that's like about gender stuff is that the Talmud had the horrible idea of going and addressing how you go and treat intersex people. It's like, yeah, you could go and fully inherit intersex people, like, as a dude or a woman, whoever they choose to go and live with it. That's like, oh, that's heresy, and go and blame intersex people for something that's entirely out of their control. Like, just seriously, those poor people go through enough. Like, so, can't smell conservatism while Con Inc. is pathetic. Communists. No. I'll say I'll note another communist there. You should really add that guy to my propaganda list. There you go. Boom. Propagandists. I keep a pretty thorough account of all the propagandists that go on. Try to, at least. Lizzie Marbach. Good night. Christ is king. Stop saying Christ is king. I'm gonna say Christ is king even harder. Christian Weisman, mother, former Ohio GOP Trump 2020 campaign. By the way, is it the point in The Office that this guy here is like a complete douchebag? Like, that's literally his point, right? Oh gosh, just... Alright, 9mm SMG. Andrew Clavin of the Daily Wire compares Christ is king to Satan using scriptures and calls it anti-Semitic, in a very specific context of it being used to go and diss Jews. You dishonest fellow. And he's, anti-Marxist. Anti-Marxist, but probably just goes and posts American communists all the time, I'd imagine. Israel Moody. Jesus Christ is king of all kings. Wife, home mother, host and follower of Christ. 130,000 followers. Alright. Oh, Modern Crusaders. Oh boy, this is probably going to be a fun account. Do I have that one bookmarked? I do not. I'm going to bookmark that one as well. Alright. Christ is king. With the headline, take them over. 70,000 views. Alright. Prepare yourselves, people.
No, we are supposed to take them over. They're supposed to be ours. We're supposed to go in and say, look, Christ died. He has inherited. He has inherited all nations. He's the King of Kings. We're supposed to say, no. This country, this country, this country, this country, that is Jesus's, that is Jesus's, that is Jesus's, and that right there is Jesus's.
So none of you have ever experienced what a hardcore Catholic looks like? Well, welcome. This is what they're like. The keys to heaven and earth, the papal seal right there. So, apparently the papacy has the right to Israel now, according to the Modern Crusaders.
So you need to accept divine revelation and rule likewise.
Once more, this one here. My kingdom is not this world. If my kingdom was the world, my servants would fight so that I would not be delivered to the Jews. But now, my kingdom is not from here. But no. Go on, just go tell us that, why should trust Jesus and all that.
Carry out what I told you to discipline all nations, all peoples. Not to maybe convert some individuals. No, nations and peoples. That's what we do. We go into places and we convert the whole place. We make the whole place Catholic. And then they're Catholic for 1,000 years. That's what we do.
That's fanaticism for you. Real big fanaticism. Real big fanaticism. Right. Sovereign Bra, pursuing truth, liberty, Jesus Christ, and personal sovereignty. New World Order disrespecter, pure blood, Bitcoin. Hey, the fact that this Christ is King discourse went down on Palm Sunday of all days is an extraordinary twist of irony and fate. This is precisely the day Christ officially made his kingship known. 600 years before Christ's ministry, the prophet Zechariah wrote a very specific prophecy concerning the arrival of the coming Messianic king. In Zechariah 9:9, he wrote, "Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey." Zechariah wrote this prophecy so the Jews would be able to recognize their Messianic king when he arrived. By the way, want to hear something interesting in Judaism? The interpretation of that text, Zechariah 9:9, is actually that's what the Messiah would look like if he arrived and rejected the Jewish people, rejected his messiahship. This is, in other words, the worst situation according to Jews, where he doesn't arrive gloriously, he arrives humble and then rides off. That's the worst situation in Judaism, and that's sort of what Christianity, the idea of Jesus riding in and rejecting the Jews in this way, this is the idea behind what they're saying here. When Jesus Christ made his triumphal entry into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey during Palm Sunday, it was in fulfillment of this prophecy. He fulfilled Zechariah's prophecy and made himself known as king. Those who recognize their king respond by worshiping and praising Jesus. Those who didn't recognize their king, the Jewish Pharisees especially, respond with hatred and disdain towards Christ. Despite divinely fulfilling countless messianic prophecies, more than anyone else in history, the Pharisees hated Christ, because he didn't appear to be the conquering warrior king Messiah they had expected. The Jews were under Roman occupation. They expected a Messiah who would make their enemies his footstool, not a humble carpenter riding on the donkey. The ethno-religious pride of the Jews blinded them to the messianic king they had waited for all along, and they had him murdered. It's a tragic story, honestly. Just as the Jews of Christ's day rejected their king, the Jews of today do so as well. Jesus didn't fulfill all the prophecies of the Messiah, they say. Not yet, I say. By the way, there's an entire Jewish critique of Jesus if you ever want to go and look up what they have to say about it. He came offering peace and mercy the first time he arrived as king. He will return with a sword and judgment. Revelation 19:11-21. Repent and believe the gospel while there's still time. All who call upon the name of the Lord can be saved. As the Apostle Paul wrote, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord, etc., 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 no difference between Jew and Gentile. So remember, Paul started out as a very hyper-ethnic guy and then went over, and when he was jilted by how the Jews were treating him, he went over and became a non-Jewish thinker, and that's kind of been the way that's prevailed. He, by the way, got called out for it in books like Hebrews and James, where they were those are followers of Jesus who are still hyper-ethnocentric, and so Paul constantly gets called out by them. It's kind of a funny thing. 342,000 views on that. Yep. And a lot more influencers when it showed up here. Groypers and all that sort of thing. Yep. Thank you for this. Jesus Christ is King. And we have this from a leader of the British Freedom Party, presenter of Templar Report, ex-Catholic, now Reformed Christian, British nationalist. By the way, if I recall correctly, wasn't the British Freedom Party, isn't that the one where they had the guy come out and say that he's hyper pro-Putin, their leader of the party? I think that was. So, but don't worry about that tape though. They'll never get into office like the. Alright, Alright, the Jewish right-wing poser plague on Twitter. So once more, this is on Censored Men's post. Yeah. Yeah, and they're all going and supporting it. Yep. And you notice that like these Muslims are also coming on because once more this doesn't matter. Like, there's this collection. They're all gang together and they're coming into that cosmic alignment. Yep. So this is what you're dealing with here. Adam Green, no more news. The Kabbalah, Judaism, and Times plan calls on the nations to turn against Jerusalem, but Zion will be saved by Meshach/God, and Israel's enemies will be destroyed. Hashtag Christ is King, Christ is King. So then he's going to apparently be citing a Kabbalistic Jew. Reminder, Kabbalism is like a very tiny minority of Jews. Like, the vast majority of Jews aren't Kabbalists. Like, there are these very, very tiny sects that you occasionally see around. This is probably like a Kabbalah guy or something like that. So, but that's just to say that this is not a normative position, whatever he's about to go and expound there, so I'm not going to bother looking into that. I twist things into anti-choice propaganda according to Media Matters, so that's Anna Lewis. Christ is King. When you say Christ is King, it offends the pride of the Jews. Nick Fuentes. Alright, Fuentes, boy. Little Nicky, let's see what you got.
And the Jews, their sin is pride. They can't stand that. Because the God of the Jews is the Jews. And when you say Jesus is your king, Jesus the Jew is the king of the Jews and the king of the universe, they say, here's your crown of thorns, loser. Here's your scepter.
Again, so once more, there's also this issue where we've got like this whole blood libel thing going on here where it's like, oh, all the Jews went and rejected Christianity, and it's like, no, what really happened is that Jesus was basically he was one of the followers of John the Baptist. Again, go look at his the baptism that's recorded. He submitted himself to John the Baptist, to the teachings of John the Baptist. Yes, they go and put a bunch of words in John the Baptist's mouth where he goes and says, oh, I'm not worthy. Well, guess what? John the Baptist had a bunch of followers, and they weren't following Jesus at that time, so they didn't follow him after his death. And as a matter of fact, they're still around today. They're called the Mandaeans. So, yeah, they're not, and they still don't follow Jesus. They say that Jesus is a person who was an apostate from their sect. So, yeah, they've been like that for thousands and thousands of years. And so just to say then that, you know, all of the Jews rejected Jesus, this is incorrect. Like the vast majority of Jews wouldn't even have known who this guy was, and frankly, it wasn't probably even a big thing where it's like, oh, the Pharisees and all that went and, you know, rejected him. Well, no, it's probable that Jesus was just one of a bunch of people that got swept up in sort of what was considered to be a rebellious form of sect that, you know, was a offense to the Herodian kingdom, and that would be why they had him arrested. And also, by the way, King Herod also had the right to go and put people to death at that time. This has been recorded by the Romans themselves, so he had the right to go and put the people that lived in his kingdom to death. He could not go and put a Roman citizen to death, and Jesus is never ever said to be a Roman citizen. Paul is given the observation that he is a Roman citizen, which is also why you have Paul being, in the story, shipped off to Rome to go and be judged in Rome because he is a Roman citizen. So this is just, you know, to say that, remember, it's a religious allegory that they developed, and it just got overemphasized over time. But we'll continue with Fuentes.
Here's your robe, and here's your throne, a wooden cross. Some king can't even bring himself off. That's also what the devil said. If you're the king, then hey, save yourself. That's their sin. So when you say Christ is king, it offends the pride of the Jews, which says, we run this world. We run America. We run Europe.
Okay. No, the Jews have never claimed to go and run all those places. The Jews have their influences, like they're a very close-knit group, and they're a very successful group as far as finances and that sort of thing goes. So yes, they have their influences in America, but they don't run the place. They don't run America. They don't run Europe.
And the Jews, which we run the world. We're so smart and we're so proud, and we've been fighting for that. It's Purim right now. It's some made up Jewish holiday. It's Purim, and you saw libs of TikTok.
Well, technically, it's from the Book of Esther, but you're correct that the Book of Esther is made up. It's a fictional story. It's not a true story. It's just one that was. It's basically like a Jewish fairy tale where, basically the idea is that this mortal enemy, the last of, it's like Amalek, is it? The Amalekites or something like that. So basically the last guy of that race goes and gets in with the ruler of, it's the Persian Empire, yeah. So gets in with the ruler of the Persian Empire and then tries to go and have the Jews persecuted out of existence. And that doesn't work, and so then the Jews eventually turn the tables on him, and then he's the one who gets executed, and so his line ends forever. And so that's the idea. The Jews manage to go and outwit a person who's trying to go and destroy them, an ethnic group that's trying to destroy them, and then the Jews end up destroying that ethnic group in return. It's a complete fictional story. We have the Persian king that is involved. We know about him. We know that his son came from the queen who was allegedly deposed in the story. So it's just an idea of what, a fairy tale of what could happen. Just like historical fiction. This is basically just a Jewish historical fiction of what would happen if instead of that queen being in there, if instead you had the Shah go and choose a Jewish girl, Esther. So that's the idea.
Who is a Jewish woman, she celebrates by saying, Rome fell and all the enemies of the Jews fall. They glorify themselves. And that's why they can't stand when meek, humble Christians glorify Christ. They don't want to hear it. And it's not that they don't want to hear it when it's followed by, Christ is king, you filthy Jew. They don't want to hear it at all. They prefer Christians that go in front of a rock band and put a giant Israeli flag behind them and talk about how we love the state of Israel and God blesses.
I mean, yeah, they would, of course, because, those people would be more pro them. But it's like, no, just because. See, here's the thing: Jews have never asked Europeans to go and follow their religion, okay? The Jews were never like, people who are outside of our nation, you have to go and follow our religion. But Christians are the entire opposite. They're like, you have to go and follow our religion to be a good person, right? So one of the groups here is asserting something that is absolutist. The other is not asserting something that's absolutist. The Jews have tendencies towards absolutism. That is, I don't think, a question. And again, this is part of, you can probably tell that if you told me, you could go and have Judaism survive, or you could have the old Israelite religion survive, I'd go and take the old Israelite religion. But the point is, though, that Judaism does have the absolutist tendencies because it went and put itself in opposition to the old Israelite religion. So, and it just did it in such a way that they basically went and create a historical, well, it's not a historical account, it's just they created an account where basically they were actually the true successors, and it was so instead of their book being written down and then handed to King Josiah, the claim is, King Josiah found an ancient book, and then we use that to go and restore the original religion of the land. So that's what happened in the Bible. It's recorded, and I think that's sort of the idea of what happened to Judaism, where Judaism came from. And so at that time, of course, it would have been used to explain, this is why we don't have these traditions that we want to go and put in place. We only have some of them. We're just going to go and say that our traditional book was lost for many, 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 many years. Right, we'll finish up with him. I am kind of sorry to go in. Like, Nick Fuentes is kind of a weird guy, and I know that some of you are like, why dealing with Nick Fuentes, right? Like, why bother listening? Like, he is a very isolated figure overall. Like, the gripers aren't really big, but it just does give you a typical idea of what sort of this sort of the trad-Cathazumers are like, right? That's what they call themselves. So just like very young people who go hardcore into these sorts of religions. And Nick Fuentes isn't. There's been a lot of speculation about sort of what Nick Fuentes is. Like, is Nick Fuentes gay? Is he? He's done some stuff that's kind of indicative that he has some of those thoughts in, but he's also potentially just someone who's like hyper closeted about it, and obviously if he goes hard into this sort of Christian grift, of course he's not going to go and come out and reveal himself. So
those that bless Israel, they don't want to hear Christ as king from Catholics. They want to hear Israel as king, bless Israel, from dispensationalist Protestants. That's the kind of Christianity they're okay with. Yeah, just shut up and go over there and just keep sending us money and keep voting for our candidates and keep telling us how great we are. Yeah. You can go and do that over there.
All right, yep. So that's his little take on it. Yeah. So, anyways, great clip. Yep. All right. And this little guy's got Christ as King in his bio, apparently. All right. So we'll keep going. Alright, so once more we have a little fortunate thing that happened with Pepe, which is that, of course, Pepe got associated with these types, and he got brought into to all the far-right guys going and using him, and then they're like, we're going to go and turn Pepe into this icon of right Christianity, and alright. And this is their language. Good morning, friends. So that's what they say, friends, instead of friends. A wonderful Tuesday. I hope you stay cozy and comfy in this holy Easter weekend. May God be with you. Christ is King. Yep. So, that's what they're like, this whole Gab style of a Christian. That's the exact sort of language that they use. Speaking of Gab, alright, it's time we got to brought in Torva. We're going to start from the... Alright. He deleted all of his stuff. You tricky fellow, Torva. You tricky fellow. Well, just give me a moment here, everyone. Hey, and we're back. Torva, you tricky fellow. You thought you could get away, but no. I made a video because I know that you have this tendency to go and delete your stuff. But this time you aren't going to get away with it because I have the video. Yep, you're going to go and see what Torva is like. And boy, oh boy. Alright, so we're going to go and hit that. Alrighty. So, but for the record, so Andrew Torva is the owner of a site called Gab. He is someone who is he wants to go and establish a Christian theocracy in America. That's his entire deal. He's part of that whole isolationist faction. I think that he also buddies up with Mike Flynn, those sorts of people. So this is who you are dealing with. So very, very fanatical sort of person. And he runs a forum called Gab, which is basically It's basically like Twitter. It's just using that Mastodon platform, if you ever have heard of that. And he's all about, this alternative Christian stuff, like, alternative Christian businesses, alternative Christian currencies. So he has his own little AI system up, I believe. So this just gives you an idea of who Torba is. And on Twitter, he knows himself as Base Torba, has about 400,000 followers. Alright, it's okay to say Christ is King. This was on March 23rd. Alright, the past few days were hopefully educational to you. Those counter-signaling and adding qualifiers to saying the phrase Christ is King to appease the Antichrist Jew are foolishly naive at best and enemies of God at worst. He's a big believer in the idea that the Jews as a whole are the Antichrist. So that's a very old Christian idea, and the idea that the Antichrist is going to be a Jew, a sort of false version of Christ. They usually give him, I think it's like the tribe of Dan that they usually say that he's going to come from. So it just gives you an idea about who, the sort of stuff that Base Torba, Andrew Torba, is trying to go and revive here. Alright. How is saying Christ is King anti-Semitic? The same way anything becomes anti-Semitic. And this is quoting Jeremy Boring here. The same way anything becomes anti-Semitic, when it is used for the purpose of expressing anti-Semitism. It's like asking, how does a shovel become a murder weapon when it is used to murder someone? And Andrew Torba says, I'm not going to be lectured about made-up sins by a man who refers to himself as God King. Yeah. I think that's a joke, but I have no doubt that Jeremy Boring has a bit of an ego. Alrighty. Now we're going to keep going here. Alright, Joseph Spurgeon, and this is a repost. A sovereign king church where a pastor ends every service with this declaration, Jesus is king. All the people respond, Jesus, long live the king. Once more, the typical Christian declaration is, he is risen indeed, and they're just going and replacing it with their this stuff. I could go and get into a whole long spew about the idea of Christian Reconstructionism, Christian Dominionism. This is sort of going to go tie into all this, where this comes from, and this all, there's the trad Catholics who want to go and establish, Catholic monarchies. These all tie together in these sorts of movements, which is one of the important reasons why I'm, of course, covering it. Alright, we're going to go and keep going here. Alrighty. So this is James Lindsay, who we remember was critical of being critical of this whole language being thrown around. A question for the Christ is King crowd. Are the Jews God's chosen people? Answer carefully. Alrighty, Andrew Torba. The answer is unequivocally no, and I will not be lectured by an atheist on this topic. Those who are in Christ, regardless of ethnicity, are part of Abraham's seed. Those who deny the Son, regardless of ethnicity, do not have the Father. And it gives you some Bible verses there. Alright. Alright. Who is the liar? Is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist, denying the Father and the Son. 1 John 2:22. This verse highlights that the heart of being Antichrist is the denial of the core Christian belief in Jesus as the Christ and the Son of God. Alright. So, you'll know here that Andrew Torba is an absolutist. He's going and saying, you're either for Christ or you're an anti-Christ, right? This is a distinction. He's like, there's nothing in between. You're either a hyper-Christian or you're our enemies. Specifically, though, he's going to be applying this to Jews because, believe it or not, Andrew Torba has also sort of been someone who has kind of soft jumped on that pro-Muslim let's all get together bandwagon. Not really in the doctrinal sense, but in the sense that he hates Jews to the point where he's like, I'm more than willing to go and hate Jews together with Muslims. That's essentially what this guy's like. Alright. So quotes the Candace Owens post, talking about Christ as King, Logos rising. That's a very interesting post. By the way, I should mention, if you see that post number at the top that says 605 posts, he basically goes and like privates his post, so I think it's like you could only see it and if he goes and follows you or something like that. You'll notice that all the comments are also turned off. Like, this is not a person who has any interest in going and debating anything that he believes in. All right. They are powerless to stop what is coming, and their attempts to stop it will only accelerate it more. On that Holy Week level energy today, I hate the Antichrist. Yeah, you've ever... That's a whole little meme that they got, or tried to get going, you know, I hate the Antichrist. And the joke is, by the way, is that that's like a schizophrenic guy who's hiding behind his couch with a shotgun going, I hate the Antichrist, I hate the Antichrist. And just like, the police are coming in, they're like, sir, are you okay? Just, so that's the joke behind that. But yeah, these guys apparently adopted it unironically. All right. A couple of videos there. I don't think, I didn't bother to go and play them. I did bother to go and play this one with the Catholic guy up here. You know, you're going to go and see that.
6 million Jews wickedly killed in gas chambers by the Nazis. Ooh.
Alright, so, sorry there. Yep, this is what the ultra-tried Catholics are like, oh, we don't give a crap about what happened to any sort of Jews. Yep, and don't believe in the Holocaust. Yep, so this is the sort of guys you're looking at with these ultra types. At the moment, they're condemned by the Catholic Church, but you know, just be aware that this is what you're looking at with the ultra Catholics rising in the background, and of course, while the Roman Catholic Church goes pretty milquetoast, these are the types that also gain a lot of influence by simply being more fanatical than the current Roman Catholics. So, yeah, that's what you're looking at here. All right, and let's go on. Alrighty, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit. So remember, he's going and applying this to Jews, specifically Jerusalem, and this is, I believe, the destruction of this is the destruction of the great temple of Jerusalem. You'll notice that you have people there like carrying away menorahs and that sort of thing, and so this is what so Torba believes that the Jews are Babylon the Great, so the great enemy that's talking about in Revelation, the great enemy that has to be overcome, the enemy that corrupts the earth. Again, this just goes to show you how fanatical this guy is about the whole thing. Yeah. Yep, and he's gone and posted the whole thing. So, Alright. Oh, boy. Repost from Devon Stack. When you realize they've looked like literal demons for all of recorded history, you have to wonder if maybe it's not the other way around, that maybe the demons look like them. So, the Roman silver amulet of a grotesque face, 1st to 2nd century AD. Yep. So apparently he's saying that this is apparently a Jew. No, this isn't. The Romans had their own idea of like fairies and that sort of thing, and so this would have been one of the uglier fairies, sort of equivalent to a goblin. You know, this is what this is essentially going for. But yeah, so Aaron Torba, though, is getting so far down the schizo line that he wants Jews apparently to go in, or he apparently wants the demons to go and take on Jewish appearances. That's how far he's gone. Yeah. Alrighty. Yep, and you'll see he's black-pilled. They unbanned this one. Black pill, for those who don't know, is there's a lot of people use this terminology. It doesn't necessarily arise from the Matrix, but that's who popularized it. So the idea is that the red pill is the pill that you take to go and see reality. Blue pill is the pill that you use to go and stay in the dream world. Black pill, the idea is that there's not any hope for anything in any of the major systems, in any of the pills being offered. So I'm going to go and be black pilled. I'm going to go and basically just bitch all the time and say that nothing matters because everything is so corrupt that nothing is ever going to change and nothing is ever going to become different. So that's black pilled for you. Alrighty. Yep. Okay. So criticizing the Babylon Bee and all that. All right. Alrighty. While practicing the ideology of no enemies to the right, Andrew Torba is accepted and even welcomed by many in the Christian nationalism movement. Yep. Alrighty, and apparently he's taking. Yep. So apparently he's getting into a dispute with a less far right conservative guy. Cry more. And not cry one bit. You are leading men away from the gospel and into something wicked. Andrew Torba, on the contrary, I'm leading them away from the satanic Judeo-Christian gospel and back to the gospel of scripture that has stood the test of time for 2,000 years. Yep. Also, is it just poetic that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mike Flynn are two of the people that recommend on the sidebar there? Ugh. Alright, this is, by the way, also something that you're going to go and see with Torba. So Torba is also obsessed about this whole idea of whiteness being attached to Christianity. I went over whiteness previously, but just to say whiteness as a thing isn't actually a thing. It's just something that people use for the sake of convenience. And if you go and do the actual genetic analysis, there isn't any such thing as the white race, which is particularly comical because we're talking about Middle Eastern folks here. And the reality is that I went and did this little experiment where I went and circled all of the lineages that are in Europe and all of the lineages in the Middle East. And wouldn't you know, they went and almost completely overlapped. So it's they just happen in different percentages. And some people, like the Greeks, for example, are actually genetically more similar in a lot of ways to the North Africans and the Lebanese, those sorts of groups. So it's I don't know. But no, they're going to go and obsess about whiteness because the leftists are obsessing about whiteness. We're going to go and be the guys who also obsess about whiteness, except we're going to go and promote whiteness. I'm saying no. You both need to shut up about whiteness. It's not a thing that exists, and you need to go and teach people the actual truth about race instead of going and obsessing about all these things. Yep. All right. So, and then claims that the Ashkenazi Jews are descended from a population bottleneck of 350 people. All right. A reminder that most of the Jews in Israel are not Ashkenazi. The largest number of Jews are from the Middle East, Mizrahim, I believe. That's their name. Mizrahi Jews, something like that. All right, line. Oh, let's back up a little bit. All right, I'm going to pause it because I went a little bit past it. Oh, frick. No. Okay. Lines are being drawn. You can be on the side of the Antichrist Zionist Jews, or you can be on the side of Jesus, the King of Kings. Choose wisely. So again, you're seeing more absolutist language being used here, and he wants to go and put you against Zionism. So once more, Torba, by the way, you'll come as a major shocker to hear this. But he's a big advocate of Russia as well. So when Russia was getting kicked off of stuff and having sanctions applied to them for aggressively invading Ukraine, well, Andrew Torba was sticking up for them. There's the deplatforming of a nation state is how he described Russia, because of course, like many of the far right Christian types, they go and read into Russia this idealistic, mythologized version of a based Christian nation. No, absolutely not. The real world Russia is nothing like that, but they want to go and just hear their fictions about what Russia is rather than the realities of what it actually is. Important. Yep. Righty, I believe that's just a joke from the quartering, by the way. Isn't that guy like a skeptic atheist or something? But apparently he said Christ is king. Oh, yeah, and there's, of course, Andrew Torba would be a fan of E. Michael Jones. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we've already gone over that post, though, so. Drew of Rad. Peter, a Jew, had no problem telling his fellow Jews that they were responsible for crucifying Christ. Yep, so, again, watch go and have this blood guilt, this blood libel on the Jews, make them the scapegoat of all the problems in the world, make them, everything bad in it. Well, once more, it's just sad that we still have to deal with this sort of crap in modernity. And I remind you, this is while the vast majority of Christians have gone and rejected that whole idea that the entire Jewish nation was responsible for Christ's death and had that whole blood guilt imputed upon them. The actual modern Christian, like the standard Christian doctrine, is that it's not the Jews that have the blood guilt, it's that very specific gathering of Jews, like the Pharisees and their allies were the ones that got inflicted with that. And then they were basically punished by having their temple destroyed. It doesn't actually go and solve the problem, because if you know anything about Judaism, you know that it was derived from Pharisaic teaching. So before the temple fell, it was basically the idea was that the Kohanim priesthood were the ones that were in charge, and then the Pharisees were like a doctrinal group of rabbis that got together and talked about things, and they were doing that with the Sadducees. And then after the temple fell, there was no more, like, the Kohanim priesthood still existed, but they didn't have the sort of power, and so Judaism became rabbinical rather than priestly. All right. You learn a lot about history when you're following with me. Huh. Always like to be there. Yep, this is still keep going on. Okay. Yep. So, but all this is just to say, like, again, Torba is a very good example of a very fanatical, absolutist person. Very odd person. So, not to be anti-Semitic, but apparently, just posted an image of Jesus, Orthodox icon, of course. Matt Williams, I don't hate Jews. Matt Williams, I don't hate Jews. I want them to repent and accept King Jesus just like I did. I do hate Jew worship, idolatry by Jews and Gentiles. Yeah. Again, nobody's talking about worshiping the Jews, just like actually, being supportive of a community that's lived amongst you for, thousands of years, not persecuting them, letting them go and flourish and be themselves. Like, yeah, that's what people are talking about. That's what rational people want. Alright, and when Keith Woods, 2% of the population, 80% of the spaces. Okay, so now we're going to go and cover this article about here. Alright, so this is on Torba's site, Gab News. Which, again, if you ever want to go and have a bit of a fever dream, you can just go read Gab News. It's as much a fever dream as uns.com, if you've ever read that site. They're just... it's handy. Okay. By the way, like, a lot of people are like, oh, these guys are, like, big, bad, and scary. And yeah, if these guys got control, like, wow, what that would happen. But, while they're not in control of anything, they just want to go and whine. It's just really funny. Just really, really funny. All right, so this was from March 25th, 2024, from Andrew Torba. Christ is king. I don't care if that makes me anti-Semitic. In light of Candace Owens and the Daily Wire ending their relationship last week after the factual statement she made about Israel and Jews, I think it's a good time to answer a serious question from a biblical perspective that far too many American Christians get wrong. Just who are God's chosen people? Pastor Andrew Iskar wrote an excellent piece on the subject a few weeks ago, and I encourage you all to read it with eyes to see. So basically, it's this piece here, and so what he was basically saying is that they're, so basically, if you're a Christian now, you're the new chosen people, and that the Jews aren't a chosen people anymore. They've been superseded. So this is what he's basically been arguing, and then so there's no more Jewish priesthood, no more anything like that. They've all been superseded. So, yeah. Yeah, and of course obsessing about homosexuality, like these guys all do. Yep. Alright, so basically that's, so it starts off with a marketing thing about Israel. Oh, we must give it $11 gazillion to Israel because they are God's chosen people, and those who bless you I will bless, as refrain Christians have been told their entire lives. There's no single theological issue that is a cause of greater confusion amongst Christians. That is the status of Israel in the New Covenant. Alright. So basically the idea is that, Jews have been superseded, and that is his argument there. Alright, so, we'll continue with Andrew Torah now. American Christianity has been utterly devoid of the orthodox, historical, and biblical perspective on this topic for far too long, but thankfully many Christians are waking up to the truth of the matter. When people like Candace Owens speak these truths and stand their ground despite being cancelled, more people come to see the truth with their own eyes. I encourage you to pray for Candace and her family because her journey in fighting for the truth has only just begun. We must stand with her against these wicked and evil people. So people are just familiar with the standard normal Christianity, the standard normal conservative Christianity. Did you ever see a time when they go and call Ben Shapiro a wicked and evil person? Oh boy, that's just funny. We'll continue with Torma. They will stop at nothing to silence and intimidate her. Trust me, I have lived it. The past few years have been very difficult for me. I faced an onslaught of stalkers, doxing, harassment, and credible threats of violence against my family because I dared to proclaim the truth of God's word on the internet in front of millions of people and provide a platform for millions of others to do the same thing. His numbers are exaggerated, by the way. I think it's been estimated that he has 100,000, 200,000, those sorts of numbers of active users, but of course he's going to say millions because he's going to include all of the bot accounts. And remember, he also had this hack a while back where a whole bunch of his accounts got leaked. So, if you had an email on Gab, you got leaked. So, and that's certainly a very impressive thing to have happened, especially given when a lot of people were too dumb to not go and know that you should go and use your work email for when you're interacting on this sort of platform. All right. Incidentally, no, I don't support illegal hacktivism, but it's just funny what happens to places like Gab or Ashley Bassett. Ashley Bassett, those jackasses would use their work emails too, their government work emails, and that just hilarious. I suppose, as we say, boomers will as boomers do. Right, let's continue with Andrew Torma. When the world is telling you that you cannot proclaim certain truths about God's word, you have a duty and an obligation to share those truths even more. This is a requirement. You cannot pick and choose which part of God's word you want to defend and believe in. It's all or nothing. While these trials in my own life have certainly been challenging, they have been worth it. More and more people are waking up to the reality of who is really running this country into the ground. The truth of this reality cannot be contained by any amount of censorship. Candace is very brave for speaking about these things from her very large platform. We must stand with her amidst these attacks. She could have kept her mouth shut, kept her head down low, and ignored the patterns of behavior and truth that there is plainly to see. But she did. Far too many influencers take the money and keep their mouths shut. Candace did what Christians are commanded to do. Speak the truth boldly. Alright, so, basically saying that Jews and their Zionist allies run this country. So. I don't think many of you realize what time it is. In the past few months alone, both South Dakota and Georgia governors signed bills codifying the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism into state law. Oh, go figure. I mean, there's just, people running around beating up Jews at college campuses and starting hate mobs against them. But for the record, apparently Andrew Torba likes that kind of far leftist. Apparently Andrew Torba is only, there's homosexuals. I don't like those people. But you know, like maybe if the homosexuals beat up, a couple of Jews occasionally, well, maybe they're good now, right? Just ridiculous. All right. So we'll continue with this. Andrew Torba, this definition includes claims of Jews killing Jesus being anti-Semitism. I really doubt that it goes that far into the whole legal aspect of it, but anyways, I believe that that's where you're not supposed to go and maybe blood libel the whole Jewish people, because it's just stupidity. All right, so Andrew Torba continues. Guess what that means, Christian? You can no longer share Bible verses such as Matthew 27 to 24 to 25, 1 Thessalonians 2, 14 through 15, and many others which clearly and unequivocally state that Jews killed Jesus Christ. The Stone Choir podcast recently released an incredible episode on the subject. If you only listened to one podcast this year, I highly encourage you to let it be this episode. You should also share it with your pastor or priest. Alright, so, by the way, for the record, you're not going to go get arrested for sharing a Bible verse, even the very violent ones. You could perhaps contextually run into issues if you're trying to go and use those to be you should be violent to very specific people. But, you're not going to get thrown in prison for sharing a Bible verse. That's just ridiculous. Alright, we'll continue. Let's also not forget Rabbi Ron DeSantis. So he calls Governor Ron DeSantis, Rabbi Ron DeSantis, just proving these guys are just, they just, for guys like this, they'll say that Trump is better than Biden probably, but they'll also go and say, we don't really like Trump or Ron DeSantis or any of that. I remember Ron DeSantis was the governor that, the right Christians are praising for, going and pushing back against some of the corporate stuff that's happening in his state. The corporate people pushing leftism, like Disney and that sort of thing. So Ron DeSantis is frequently praised by those people, but for Torba, of course, he's just another fake conservative and all that. I remember actually talking a while back with a guy who's the left is so divided. The left is always at each other's throats. Well, you have nothing. The left, honestly, probably has nothing on their right with how disorganized at each other's throats they are all the time. At least in America. I'm not going to go and bash their right all over the place. How it is. There's certain places where the left is better and certain places where the right is better. It just kind of goes and shifts around, and that's sort of my take on it. All right, so we'll continue with Torba. Making it illegal to pass out flyers in the streets that Jews find offensive. That we're calling for violence against Jews, which people that were attached to these various universities, these crazed fanatics, were doing. And you see those all the time, by the way, in other states which do not have these same sort of laws, where there's no protection for being a Jewish, and we see what happens, that they get all of these mobs that go out and they go and they go and harass Jews, they go and take away business from Jewish-owned shops. They do all these very, very anti-Semitic things. But of course, for Torba, he's an anti-Semite, so he absolutely likes that they're doing this. All right, we'll continue. Flyers that happen to contain some of those very Bible verses that I mentioned above, as well as other factual and verifiable information on them, which means just a bunch of anti-Semitic claims. All right, Communist China isn't doing this. The radical left isn't doing this. Red state governors are doing it at the behest of their Jewish donors, and Zionist Christians are standing by and letting it happen. Christ is king. Right. For several years now, I've edited all my emails and blog posts with the phrase, Jesus Christ is king. Asserting the kingship of King Jesus makes his enemies tremble. Simply invoking his name in conversation will make them cower in fear. There is power in his name, and there is supreme authority in asserting his kingship, which is precisely why these demons are trying to prevent you from saying Christ is king by calling it anti-Semitic. Shortly after Candace Owens started proclaiming Christ is king in front of her millions of followers, many Christ-hating Jewish leaders started attacking her character on X. This is a common occurrence when prominent figures in conservative circles proclaim the name of Christ in conversation. That's why, unfortunately, many Christians in conservative media circles rarely bring up their faith or talk about Jesus at all. Is that anyone else's experience? Because, like, no, nobody. Conservative Christians in America are the norm still in the Republican Party. It's true. And they actually make it a very big thing about being pro-Christian, even if you're, not someone who cares about religion. Like, for example, Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump doesn't care about religion, but Donald Trump will be, photographed in front of a church with a Bible in his hand, and he'll be like, people are attacking Christianity, stand with me. Because he understands that's who his base is. He understands that you can go and appeal to them that way. And even some of the initial posts here, again, one of the initial things that all these people were trying to go and bring up was, Andrew Clavin, as is mentioned a bit later on. He wasn't shy at saying that he's a Christian, but no, apparently that's not good enough for someone like Torba. Because again, he's a Jew, and of course, being a Jew, Clavin's just going to be a dirty infiltrator who is, of course, trying to go and destroy Christianity from the inside. Well, all right, Andrew, have that perspective. We'll continue. Candace fired back at these despicable rabbis with factual and verifiable information about the state of Israel and the nature of political and social influence that Jews have in our country. Candace's Jewish boss, Ben Shapiro, didn't like this one bit, and so now she no longer works at the Daily Wire. Following her departure, a familiar narrative broke out from conservative Inc. circles. The claim that saying Christ is king is anti-Semitic when it is said to an unbelieving Jew. New sins are being fabricated from thin air, not by the Christless pagans on the left, but by those who claim to be Christians on the conservative right. Andrew Clavin, an ethnically Jewish convert to Christianity who also works for the Daily Wire, did a segment on this controversy, following Candace's departure, and made this claim. His segment is so bad on so many levels, it hurts my heart that many sincere Christians will listen to this man and take what he says here seriously. But make no mistake, this is straight from the pit of hell. Like many others, Clavin says that those who proclaim Christ's kingship are anti-Semitic. This entire segment is about him elevating his Jewish ethnic identity above his identity in Christ. He's not concerned that the kingship of the Savior is being attacked. He's instead concerned that his ethnic tribe is being offended by that kingship. He is in error and should be rebuked. Clavin then continues to bear false witness against fellow believers in the segment by claiming that those of us who proclaim that Christ is king also believe that God has abandoned his chosen people and that he has broken his promises. Nothing could be farther from the truth. None of us believe God has abandoned his chosen people. First of all, the Bible is very clear. God's chosen people are Christians, not unbelieving, Christ-rejecting Jews. 1 Peter 2:9. God did not abandon the Jews. They abandoned him when they killed and rejected his son, Jesus Christ. 1 Thessalonians 2:14-15. None of us believe that God has broken his promises. All of his promises were fulfilled in Christ. 2 Corinthians 1:20. There were no special side promises to unbelieving, Christ-hating Jews. They missed the boat 2,000 years ago. The good news is that they can still get back on the boat if they repent and accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. This is Christianity 101. Stating these facts isn't anti-Semitic, and even if it was, it wouldn't matter. Christians are required to affirm these facts because this is plainly what the Word of God says. When you deny the Word of God to appease the feelings of a Christ-rejecting Jew, you are sitting at the table that Jesus flipped over and denying Christ himself. The analogy, by the way, being to Jesus flipping over the tables of the money lenders in the temple. All right. We'll continue with Torba. The very worst part of Clavin's segment on this topic is when he tells us about his friend, Ben Shapiro. He claims that if Ben were to embrace Jesus Christ, it would cause devastation for his life. He would be worse off. Clavin apparently believes God wants Ben to continue to reject his son. With friends like this, who needs enemies? This is madness. As Christians, our heart longs for the salvation of our unsaved family and friends. My own heart longs for Ben Shapiro to repent and accept Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. It's unthinkable that Clavin would say this as a Christian. So who are God's chosen people? Those who are in Christ, regardless of ethnicity, are part of Abraham's seed. Those who deny the Son, regardless of ethnicity, do not have the Father. Galatians 3:29, 1 John 2:23. Romans 9:6-7 states, "For they are not all Israel, which are of Israel, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children." In Romans 11, Paul uses the metaphor of an olive branch. The natural branches, Jews, were broken off because of unbelief, and wild branches, Gentiles, were grafted in. Yet there's hope that the natural branches can be grafted back in only if they accept Jesus Christ, who is the root. Revelation 22:16. By the way, note how they're using that. Like, look at that metaphor of the tree, right? And remember that the tree of life spreads up from the ground, right? And it goes over billions of years. And yet here we're told that you have to be grafted into a branch. Like, you don't go and naturally exist from that branch. You're not like a natural thing. This is talking about a unnatural tree where it's like only Jesus is the initiator of the tree, and then all of you others, you're from this alternative little material bunch, and now you have to go and be grafted into Jesus's branch, Jesus's tree. Remember, these very weird metaphors, and they're very important. Like, this is once more the ideal of Platonic idealism, right? Where you have this idealistic world that is the super world, and then you have the material world. And remember that Jesus in the Bible is given the title of the Logos, the Word, which is the initiator of reality from that idealistic world, the world of ideals, the realm of ideals. And so the idea is that, to be saved, you then have to go and be grafted onto the world of ideals. Very, very important. And this is one of the key things that makes Christianity like this whole otherworldly faith. Of course, for these people, they're more using it as like a political tool of political expression. Perhaps that's why they get so fanatical about it as well. All right. Let's continue with Torba. The Old Covenant was completely fulfilled and rendered obsolete with the destruction of the temple in AD 70, as indicated in Hebrews 8:13. This marks a transition to the New Covenant, which is open to all through faith in Jesus Christ. All right, I'm just going to go and just actually, no, it's James, right? Yep, James 1. I'm going to go and ask you, does this sound like a man who has rejected, like, the ethnicity of the Jews, like the Jews as their chosen people? So my point is that there's like this Pauline sense that people go and look at this whole rejection, and then there's this other idea, which is that early Christianity actually was a Jewish thing, and that it was intentionally a Jewish thing, and then only became expanded when the Pauline sect came in. So this is just from James 1, which is a book in the New Testament. Again, this is from, I believe James is an apostle of Jesus. It might be one of those books where there's a little bit of a dispute on that, but anyways, James, a bondservant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. All right. Do you see that? To the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. He is addressing this only to the Jews. And yes, there are these Christians who are like, he meant this allegorically and blah, 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 blah. No. He's addressing this to the Jews, all right? Like, this is James's idea. He's just going in and saying, hi to all the Jews that are living in Anatolia and Greece and Italy and Spain. These are the people that he's talking to, okay? So just remember that, okay? That's, yeah, so, like, not only in the Pauline ideology is there this idea of the replacement. In the original idea of Christianity, there wasn't this idea of replacement. It was a Jewish sect that was interested in talking to Jewish people. They have lessons about, like, being with, about being nice to outsiders and being accepting of outsiders and that sort of thing. And what reminder, Jesus is fundamentally a libertine. That is fundamentally who you should regard Jesus as. It's just these people have turned Jesus into this sort of hyper legalistic figure, when Jesus is, let's go and look this up, tax collectors and sinners. Okay, so remember, this is the sort of guy that Jesus is, okay? This is from Matthew 9. Now happened as Jesus sat at the table in the house, that behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" When Jesus heard that, he said to them, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. For I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." All right. So, again, this is the idea of Jesus, and then, all right, let's just, all right, and then this is another woman who, I'm just going to show you this again. Alright, so a sinful one forgiven. Then one of the Pharisees asked him, Jesus, to eat with him. And went to the Pharisee's house and sat down to eat. And behold, a woman in the city who was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of fragrant oil, and stood at his feet behind him weeping. And she began to wash his feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head. And she kissed his feet, and anointed them with fragrant oil. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, "This man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what manner of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner." And Jesus answered and said to him, "Simon, I have something to say to you." So he said, "Teacher, say it." "There's a certain creditor who had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii, and the other 50. And when they had nothing with which to repay, he freely forgave them both. Tell me, therefore, which of them will love him more?" Simon answered and said to him, "I suppose the one whom he forgave more." And Jesus said to him, "You have judged rightly." Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but this woman has anointed my feet with fragrant oil. Therefore I say to you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little." Then he said to her, "Your sins are forgiven." And those who sat at the table with him began to say to themselves, "Who is this who even forgives sins?" They said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." So once more, this is the idea, right? This guy is not a hyper legalist. He is a libertine. Law of, and then maybe I'll just go and see if I could show you one more passage. Right, and so that was Pauline. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. All right, so that's all just to go and tell you, though, that remember, this is the guy who's apparently it's supposed to be this ultra legalistic, hyper legalistic person. It's very weird. These people have gone and taken it in this direction, and then they're like, "Oh, this is the man whose name we're going to go into." Put the world to a sword with. See, the difference between Jesus and a Muhammad is that a Muhammad actually went and started up a physical kingdom, like a physical empire, and then that was a deep part of his doctrine, whereas Jesus was never really a successful teacher. He only became successful after his death and was followers taught about him, but during his life he was not a successful religious teacher. He had a handful of followers, but even those, when the time came to stand next to him, they abandoned him and let him be crucified, and they just ran away. And then some of them got guilty, came back, and you know the story from then on. Basically, that's why if you look at what they say about the cross, it's like he had John who watched him from the distance, and then only Mary was there, and she was weeping at his feet. So that is basically only a woman was, who of course would have been regarded as being one of the lesser followers because they were relatively sexist back then. So only she was there at his feet, and she was the only one who was actually there to comfort him. So, which is just to say that, remember, we have these mythologies that we turn people into, but there is a reality, a real person behind them, and so that person is going to be more interesting than the sort of mythology that we're talking about. And with Torba, of course, what he wants is the mythologized Jesus. He wants this Son of God, this manifestation of God that came to the earth and all that sort of thing. All right. So let's keep going here, though, with Torba. No one who rejects Jesus Christ has any covenant with God simply because of their ethnic background. God's chosen people initially referred to the Israelites, but has now been expanded to include all who believe in Jesus Christ, irrespective of ethnic background. This is based on passages like Galatians 3:28-29, which emphasize unity in Christ regardless of ethnic distinctions. What are God's people chosen for? The answer in both the New and Old Covenants is simple: Jesus Christ. You can't reject him and be part of God's chosen people. Period. If unbelieving Jews aren't God's chosen people, then what are they? Quote, "Who is the liar? It is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist, denying the Father and the Son." 1 John 2:22. This verse highlights that at the heart of being Antichrist is the denial of the core Christian belief in Jesus as the Christ and the Son of God. This concept also extends beyond individuals to go to what John calls the spirit of the Antichrist, which was already at work in the world during his time. 1 John 4:3. This refers to a broader movement or attitude that opposes or seeks to replace Christ, which is exactly what modern Jews wish to do today, thus making them Antichrist. Alright, so some very serious accusations being thrown out there, and reminder, this is... See, Torba is interesting because he just says what is actually at the root behind a lot of this hatred of the Jews. And this includes, by the way, in Islamic circles, where one of the reasons that they're given for hating the Jews is because the way that the Jews oppose Jesus and claim to have crucified Jesus. This is one of the libels that Israel... this is one of the libels that Muslims place upon Israel, okay? Saying that, oh, you crucified Jesus, you hate Jesus, therefore you're also hated, and at the end of the world you're going to be bowing to him and he's going to be your judge. Alright, let's finish up with Torba here. So when they call you anti-Semitic, you need to be calling them Antichrist, because they are. One of those words is in the Bible, the other is made up by Antichrist Jews. If that offends you, take it up with God. Make no mistake about it, the demons attacking the kingship of Christ during Holy Week is no coincidence. But rest assured, brothers and sisters, the gates of hell will not prevail. Christ is king, and I don't care if that makes me anti-Semitic. Deal with it. Andrew Torba, CEO, Gab.com, Jesus is king. Alright. Yep, so there you see it, right? Like, a reminder, Candace Owens was the one who initiated this, and she also, given how many people leapt on that, would be a surprise to know that she initiated this at the request of people who were inside that isolationist faction. She's definitely connected to them now. That's my guess, is that she went and initiated this, and they're using this as a way to go and try and get a large part of conservatives to go and be to hate Israel. Because remember, they've already done this with Ukraine. They already lied up to the hilt about Ukraine and have gone and put out this mythologized version of, oh, Christian Russia, and then they've gone and presented Ukraine as the one who goes and persecutes Christians. But it's the entire opposite, of course, right? And we've seen numerous cases of non-Orthodox Christians being persecuted inside of Russian-controlled Ukraine. So, but they want these fake narratives out there, and they want you to believe in these mythologized systems, and that way you can go and be an isolationist and be your happy little camper in America, and then these isolationist big business types, which is what they are. They're these dirtbags like David Sachs and these sorts of people. And then they can go and do however much business they want with Russia and China and just go and prance around and be like, oh, we're so happy. Look at us. We're going and being, we're going and selling out everyone and everything. But that doesn't matter because they're nihilists. They just go and use these sorts of religious idiots like Andrew Torba. And of course, if they could go and profit from the institution of a Christian system like this, they would do that as well. But for now, it just goes and serves to get them fanatical followers that will go and listen to them. All right. And I'm going to just do a few more of these because I think I've already made my point as to what these sort of peoples are like. All right, so Jay Dyer, author, comedian, host of the Alex Jones Show. All right, Tucker Special. All right. By the way, Alex Jones, he recently came out against Israel as well, which is very interesting. Did he? I wonder if I'm just going to go and look this up real quick. I know it's like, indulge me for a moment. I just want to see if he has anything to say about this controversy. All right, so let's continue here. I apologize for that interruption. We'll go and take a look at Alex Jones a little bit later. All right, so we have Jay Dyer, and he is apparently affiliated with the Alex Jones Show. Seems like the real issue of Christ is King is the historic teaching of the relationship of church and state. Traditional teaching is orthodox monarchy. This ridiculous Twitter drama has nothing to do with the actual historic doctrine. Oh boy. Yep, or orthodox monarchy. Really interesting that that's exactly what he leapt to. I mean, has a Catholic version as well, but of course you gotta go for the Orthodox version. Alrighty. Covered that. Chief Trumpster, Christ is King, say it back. It's okay to say Christ is King. Yep. So, another one of, I think, Nick Fuentes' guys, apparently, or something like that. Yep. Yeah, Air America First Investigative. Yep. Alrighty. Satasha Cattergator. Christ is King and Mary is Queen. She saw herself as nothing without him, and saw his perfect goodness, so she gave herself entirely to him, reflecting his perfect love as the moon reflects the light of the sun, embracing sacrificial love and holy suffering. Yep. Very Catholic, yep. Hey. Okay, so it's Candace Owens here, and that's going to be a good Groiper associated account. Nice deflection attempt. You, Clavin, and Shapiro have all exposed yourself as complete hypocrites for canceling Queen Candace Owens and then claiming it as anti-Semitic to say Christ is King. We see right through you. Queen Candace won, and you suck. Yep. Alright. These guys are saying Christ is King have bad motives. They are heckin' anti-Semitic. Paul in Philippians 1:18. Hold up, Lem Cook. Alright. Yep, so Anglican supremacist. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yep. Alright. Alright, so now let's go look up Alex Jones here. Alex Jones, real Alex Jones. Does he have anything to say on this topic? Alright, we're going to go and keep going. Keep going. Okay, yep, so here you'll see, yep, he's thrown himself in with the, Israel is genociding the Palestinians. So once more, remember, Jones is ultimately affiliated with that whole isolationist group in America, so of course, eventually he had to show his true colors. Investigative journalist reports live from Palestinian genocide in Gaza. And I say true colors as if, just him going and supporting Russia in Ukraine isn't enough. But yeah, eventually this isolationist group, of course, they were going to go and come for Israel. They just want all of America's allies to go and be betrayed and have their backs stabbed. That's what these guys ultimately want. So, yeah. No, again, blames like U.S. for, of course he would go and blame them for the attack in Russia. Yep. All right. So all this apparently goes and centers around like this weird, I don't know, Rabbi Shmuley guy. I mean, Washington Post calls the most famous rabbi in America, right? Right. So apparently just having controversy with him is like, yeah. He's promoting Smearing Girl, yep. Yeah, so let's just say that Alex Jones is completely in with all these different people. Okay, yep, and he reposted it. That's what he did. Christ is King is trending worldwide. The media's attempt to cross him again has failed. Happy Sunday. So, yep, he's gone and thrown himself in with Candace Owens on this matter. Like I said, they're all starting to go and flock together on the different issues. There's an alignment, and you'll note that alignment is between the far left, the conspiracists, the far right, and then the Russia, China, Iranian axis. This is who is throwing them in, and the Muslims, like just all these different groups coming and converging together, becoming as one. Like this is just really, really, it's really notable. As I said, fourth monotheism. If you want to go and use that for yourself, go ahead. Fourth monotheism. That's my stake on what these guys are doing. Just the fourth absolutism, if you'd prefer. That would be less technically correct given how many absolutists have followed before. But yep, they just want you to go and believe in all of their little religious cults. And yep, you can go nowadays, we're merciful absolutists. While we're going and stamping your face in with our authoritarian boot, you now get to go and choose between these very specific little religions that you have. So you can be Christians or Muslims, and isn't that a wonderful thing? Can't have like your own individual deities or be part of your own indigenous religion. No, apparently that's evil now because that can't be manipulated by us and controlled as state religion. So state religion's awesome things. Every other religion terrible. All right. Yep. And this is just guys saying, yeah, this is what Nick Fuentes' guys are doing. Correct. Here's him getting promoted again. Yep. Alright, so I think I've given you enough talk about all of this. In summary, the idea of Christ as King, it has some doctrinal precedence in Christianity, but it is in terms of him being this otherworldly king, is not in terms of him ruling over the here and now and allowing his followers to go and rule over the here and now with the sword. These were doctrines that were established when the elites in the Roman Empire converted to Christianity and then decided they thought it was a useful tool of political suppression, and then they used it to go and conquer everyone around them, and then they interpreted that as their kingdom on earth. I should also note that what happened too is that people took the apocalyptic statements in the Bible and then they were constantly applying them in like, this is going to happen in 100 AD, 200 AD, these sorts of round numbers. And of course, Christ never returned. So what then happened is that a lot of them went and allegorized the return of Christ as the formation of Christendom. So that should just give you an idea of where this doctrine came from and the idea of what to expect with these sorts of types. Sorry, I apologize for that jump cut again there. Once more, our march against absolutism continues, and it's going to keep going. We're going to have play more stuff like this that comes up. This has been Kotarian Lightning, signing out.